This game is played via Discord over text from World of Nosgoth, the fan-made game, TTRPG. The player is Fuddy, who's playing as Ezrin Alatans, and I, Freezer, am the GM. This was set in my design of what the Demon Realm is. Link in the comments will be the lore of the setting for you to read if you are curious to learn more about what this Demon Realm is that I've designed. Hylden, a species riddled with mutation, insanity, and trapped in hell after losing their war against the ancient vampires. Utilizing a combination of technology and magic, they've erected barriers of glyphs to stave off the worst of this land's horrible effects. But for those who are unlucky enough to not live in the cities, they suffer a fate far worse than death. What was once a singular species has now divided into 5 mutations, variations of the same species. And here, our protagonist is one of the damned. The damned possess green illusionary flames that swath around their head, but do not burn the body. These individuals are capable of harnessing magic. Ezrin Alatans grew up in the vast city of Hagivast, a city full of seers, prophets, and swindlers. Growing up as a mere boy, Ezrin observed the local mages perform their business of reading people's prophecies and casting mystical, enticing spells to draw in customers. As a teenager, Ezrin applied himself in the streets as a ruinator, a seer who specializes in curses, paid to cast a small curse on the target. Ezrin didn't possess the greater capabilities as the older mages, but he managed to make small inconveniences come true. People stubbing their toe too many times, people forgetting to make their payments on time, just small instances of bad luck. Things were looking good, till one customer appeared. A leader of a tribe was furious at Ezrin one day, because Ezrin predicted doom and misfortune would befall this man's tribe. The man called Ezrin out as a fraud, for nothing had happened to his tribe at all. Ezrin, having learned the ropes, blamed it on the tampering of his prophecy by the man's rivals, who most likely had hired a dream stealer. A dream stealer is a seer who specializes in obscuring enemy visions. Entering the world as an adult, Ezrin had enough money to afford a standard iron club that he had no skill with, and a steel chest piece for good protection. Starting with the peddler's quarter of the city, where many markets and outsiders intermingle, Ezrin listened to the crowds, eavesdropping some unique lines of dialogue. "There's a caravan arriving soon for Divin. After they make their drop-off to our banks, we might get hired as guards for the return trip. I always hear that what they need more guards for." "Well, they usually drop off the gold to our banks in exchange for many materials that are in return used to propagate their own industry like weapons or glyphs." Ezrin approaches with a confident posture, gathering his charm as he talks to these 2 gentlemen. "What's this about a convoy?" The 2 flaming-head individuals point at the gate where there's a convoy and tell him that since the caravan is returning home, they will only give half pay, not full. But the 2 men are just eager to leave this dump of a city called Hagivast. The destination of this gold caravan is the wealthy city of Divin. Ezrin hears this and comes to them with a proposition. "How do you gentlemen feel about pooling your energy to discern how the trip plays out?" Yes. That should work. A 3-way split if we do this job right." The second guy pipes in. "Yeah, if we 3 can come on, then they got a good chance of hiring. They prefer groups as it's easier than individual contracts." The trio approach the caravan master and a man of bulging muscle. He's one of the blessed individuals who suffer no mutations nor insanity. Majority of hylden society despise them for their good stature and their luck. The man sees the three and haggles them. "What? You looking to join on as muscle? We can use two of you. The third man will have to accept less pay or just be cut out." The trio all gaze at Ezran, hoping he would take one for the team, but Ezran, in a stroke of brilliance, made a counter-proposal. "Surely 3 talented sorcerers are worth a few more gold coins." The caravan master sighed. The argument was good, too good. He agreed and commanded them to get going. "Okay, fine. Normal pay, but you better pull your weight. Food and water rations will be dished out now. Hop on. The Poplatil will like long-term deals, but not this long-term." The caravan starts its journey. The trek is long, and the moment Ezran looks back, all he can see is Haguvast as the size of his thumb. The caravan master yells, "All right, make camp. You and your buddies set up near each other." Ezran and co. all laugh and joke about what it was like to live in Haguvast. Like when a merchant gave away all of his belongings because he believed in a prophecy that greed would be his downfall, only to die slipping on his gold urn and banging his head on the pavement. As the night drags on, Ezran feels the pull of sleep on his watch. Through a stroke of luck and endurance, he manages to erect himself upright and stay alert, staying awake, resisting the urge to sleep. Much to the luck of his party, for off in the distance, the sands of the dunes start to turn. They start to spiral together, forming 2 figures of demonized women, known collectively as sand harpies. "Harpies, wake up!" Ezran yells. The camp stirs hard, everyone scattering out of bed and wakes up. The caravan master shouts, "Quick, men! The loot! Let's move out!" As the camp hurries to the rescue the cargo, Ezran gets with everyone and tries to push the carts out of danger. He realizes that one of his buddies is still sleeping by the fire. He's trying his hardest to get his equipment out from the camp, but he's struggling. Something is caught. Ezran yells, "Hurry up or die!" He looks frantically at Ezran and his luggage, then back at Ezran. The harpies... Too late. They surround him. The party hear him scream, "Ah!" and then it's brutally interrupted by dead silence. For sand harpies do not kill their victims. They instead paralyze them and bury them in the sands for the sands to do the work. No one really knows what the sand harpies are. They're just viewed as a natural occurrence, like a hurricane or a tornado. They just appear, paralyze you, leave you in the sand, and you can't do anything about it. You can't hurt them with weapons. You can't hurt them with magic. No one knows what they are. But they do pass, and that does give some relief to some people. A few hours pass on the road, and finally the caravan master yells, "Okay, we rest again. Only 3 hours though. Sorry, lads." Everyone grumbles. The second man comes up to Ezran. "Damn, I can't believe he's gone. He told us of this opportunity, and now he's gone, and we didn't even help him." "We tried. He lagged behind. It was either flee or die. But we've learned from this. Keep your armor on while you sleep. Keep your equipment on you. It'll lessen what you have to gather." The man was angered by this response. His face was torting, winding up like a scorpion ready to strike. What? He got us into this. You should at least show some care for this. He was my friend." The rest of the journey was silence among the party, as tensions were high. Making a quick pit stop at the great industrial city of Nuring, where hundreds of factories mass-produce anything cheaply that any man could ever need. Not possessing really any coin to his name, Ezran passed through the markets, noting that the prices were still too rich for his blood, despite how cheap they were. Exiting the city after a brief visit To collect more food for the journey, the convoy starts to pass by the vast landscapes with no issue, ranging from canyons to volcanic dry dunes. Finally, they enter into a mass desert, where off in the distance is a mirage. There they see a golden glow on the horizon, the faint image of a skeleton laying on its side, with golden flames encompassing it. The skeleton laying and almost owning the entire horizon from its sheer size. "Ah, Devon, my old hometown!" cries one of the guards. "Take it all in, new boys. This glory, this mighty deed, birthed our whole city-state into existence," the caravan master boasted, as they continued towards the great carcass and towards the city that they could barely see. Ezran just sees a few grain lashers, feral demon dogs of the desert, howling towards the rising sun, and the occasional passing caravans walking by them. The journey was surprisingly peaceful. Unfortunately, that's not how peace sustained itself. The angry companion approaches Ezran again. "Too bad my friend couldn't be here to see this." As Ezran looks to the angered man, he feels his gold being taken off of his belt. Taking action, Ezran casts Recoil in Pain, a spell that sends a telekinetic pulse, flinging the man off of his gold pouch and onto his back. The whole caravan stops to investigate what that loud percussive sound was. As they approach Ezran, Ezran yells with all the air in his lungs, "You thieving bastard! I tried to help him and you did nothing! Now you think you're going to steal from me to satisfy your failure?" The caravan master gazes at the sight before him, whipping out some cloth to wipe his sweat. "Got him and let's move. I got ends to meet. Leave him here in the desert for all I care, but you, sir," he points at this now fallen companion, "are not permitted to ever work for the Popliteal ever again. Should you survive, of course." The man sulks with devastation at the words as he hears. He looks at Ezran with a slight hope in his eyes. He mutters a small, pitiful gasp. "Please." As the caravan proceeds to move on, Ezran, utilizing his magic, he tries to do something different. What little skill he possesses, he decides to channel all of his magic in the sky. A red miasma starts swirling from his fingertips, above the downed thief. The red miasma swirls and swirls like a tornado. Then, it touches ground onto the thief's forehead. He screams as the magic leaves behind a rune of burning glyph onto him. Ezran looks down at him. "For your transgressions and the worthlessness of your life, I take you to be mine. Your hands shall be my hands. Your will shall be my desire. Your commands will be ignored, for only my commands shall be listened to. You shall serve unto your death, as is my will." Rising up from the sands, the man feels the burn on his forehead any time he has any nasty ill will thoughts to his now new master. Anytime he thinks of stealing from him, hurting him, insulting him, the red rune burns into his forehead with intensity. Approaching the city of Divin, of the Golden Corpse, Ezran gazes in amazement. There are hundreds of miners on built scaffoldings, siphoning the golden flames from the giant corpse. The gold flames collect into their magical cylinders and solidify into solid gold. The caravan master points at the gate that they're approaching, and he gazes at the new slave Ezran has. "Listen, all cities have slave markets outside the city. Those camps, there is not just the military, but also the slave markets. My advice, sell him for a high price due to his magical abilities." Ezran smiles. "I'll take that under advisement, my friend. Where can I find more work?" Here inside the city, the caravan master explains to Ezran how the guild in Devon is called Pressed. They regulate gold trade, and the only way to join them is to be a great earner for them. Not even the caravan master is a member despite providing so much food to the city for great prices. Giving Ezrin his payment of 320 demicostal coins, a unique currency that's unique to Devon, where anytime you move the coin, it leaves behind a faint green miasma. This is to prevent counterfeit or fraud. Gazing at the whole city, Ezra knew he struck literal gold. This city has a higher standard of living than Haguvast. The common peasant has a house with actual doors instead of just a small tapestry like his old house. "My name is Huel, not that you ever care to ask," the slave finally chimes in. Ezrin smirks and tries to tell him how he'll be treated well, but Huel disregards it and keeps on a pessimistic attitude. Ezrin spots the Guild of Prest. Inside the city, this guild is basically its own fortress. It has its own walls and its own glyph network, reminiscent of the same technology that Ezrin had seen in Nuring. At the gate was a guard. "Here to leave a donation or what?" The guard spoke very bluntly. Ezrin explained his situation, that he's an outsider looking for work and money, to which the guard simply said, "Leave. This is for the guild. Members only. Sell that slave and you'll make some money in jobs or at the marketplace, so go just like every other common muck." Huel just sighs. "Let's sell me and get this farce over with." Angered, Ezrin grabs Huel by the arm and pulls him into the slave market. There, outside the city, they see many slaves are covered in blisters from the heat, severely malnourished and dehydrated, even wounded. One slave was a blessed one, but due to his physical condition, he appeared like a typical hylden suffering from any sort of affliction. Ezrin snaps at Huel. "Huel, I enslaved you to spare your life. The caravan would have killed you for your theft. The wasteland would have devoured you in the night. Look at these people, starving, dying, in agony at the whim of their captors. Is this life what you wish to be thrust into? No kin, no mercy? Hate me if you wish, I do not care, but do not mistake my kindness for cruelty." Looking for work, Ezrin spots the tribe of Mad Ones. The Mad Ones are those who live generations among the deserts. Their minds are completely riddled with insanity, and their hands have fallen off, leaving behind blades sharpened bone. Approaching this insane bunch of individuals, they immediately begin twitching unnaturally and hissing at the newcomer. "Leave us before we split you in two." To which Ezrin, working his charm again, "Cousins, please, I'm just looking for work, and I'm looking for ways to help your tribe." "Cousin!" The arms of the bloodied bones start to rise up. The slave auctioneer notices the commotion and intervenes. Grelonk tribe, I'll escort this outsider away. He seems to be bothering you." He takes his arm around Ezrin's shoulder and re-guides him away from the Mad Ones. "Listen, these slaves I get them from the Grelonk tribe. But you see, these ain't really slaves, my boy. These are just those that are lucky enough to survive. So don't go making a mess of my deal and messing with my patrons. Now, please, leave me be." Taking the man's advice, Huel and Ezrin head back to the city, where they're immediately charged by the guard a entering fee. Thankfully, with the amount of money they have, they enter. Feeling hunger and thirst starting to kick in, they head into a bar called the Brawling Hunger. A bar of basic food and drinks for the common man. Among the patrons, Ezrin and Huel blend in perfectly. Taking up a bed and shelter at the bar, Ezrin wakes up in the morning and sees a note from Huel, some scribble he made from overnight. Writing bone to the jugular, throat slit while sleeping, suffocation by pillow, the list goes on and on. At the title, though, of this note is, quote, "How to Help Master." Ezrin chuckles at this as he and Huel head out. Ezrin doesn't even challenge Huel over it. They head out looking for a source of income. Looking at his pouch of was once 320 demicostal coins, he's now down to just a mere 30. Heading outside, they see that there's a sign posted out for work, one of which is a bounty. The doctor of the city, Dr. Alf, needs a patient hunted down and killed for not paying his medical expenses. Heading to the doctor's place, they see it's a building full of syringes and elixirs. As they approach the doctor sighs. I posted that 2 weeks ago. Well, and he begins to explain to Ezrin the elixirs on the counter, because Ezrin's pointing at this weird red elixir he's never seen before. This is an elixir of red. It rejuvenates your wounds. Most commonly, people buy it for battle or for curing an ailment. I would recommend it when you need rapid regeneration. So Ezrin decides, okay, so now I know what a healing potion is. So let's go back to the topic though. What is this bounty you're offering? Do you have a picture or a description of this person? The guy slides a picture and description of the guy. The guy seems to have one eye and rather ugly in appearance, covered in sweat and soot. His name is Fretz. Fretz had avarician tumors, and upon my removal of them, he bailed, after stealing the tumors from my hands. Bastard must have drank something to combat the anesthesia. You get him. I don't care if he's dead or alive. Reward is 400 demicostal coins. Tell you what. You enslave him like your slave there, and I'll give you an elixir of green for free. So, heading out, there is something interesting that he noticed with the doctor, is that the doctor doesn't really seem to care what happens. All he wants is to experiment and test on living subjects. Heading out, Ezrin realizes that Fret is the very owner of the bar he was just living in. So heading back to the Brawling Hunger, now with a job in hand, he heads to confront the owner. While at the Brawling Hunger, scanning around the place, they couldn't really find anything. And the waitress approaches them cautiously, asking, what are they doing? What are you guys looking for? And as they tell her the story that, hey, there's a bounty on the owner here, he's a real scumbag, the waitress becomes weird and starts giving them information that doesn't make sense. And even Ezrin catches on to it. You're saying that the owner left 4 weeks ago, but 2 weeks ago he had surgery? The timing doesn't add up. None of the information she's giving is really working. And she starts to fret and starts to get uncomfortable. Calling out to the back, she asks for a man named Mig in the kitchen to come out. Mig is a very large man, a hylden of sizable proportions. And she points at the two guys. Get them to leave. Mig, holding a giant chopper in his hand, swings at Ezrin, cleaving him, almost killing him. Ezrin and Huel break into action, both of which start sound blasting, telekinetically throwing his ass around the bar and slamming him outside the bar's doors. Mig is barely holding it together, barely alive, and Ezrin begins to do his work. Summoning all of his magic, all of his capabilities, he brands a rune onto Mig's back of his fat head. The rune blazes red. And as Mig gets up and he stares at Ezrin, he starts screaming in pain. Urgh! Upon which Huel says, hey, it stops burning once the job's done, fatty. Just get your ass up. Ezrin gets a few chuckles out of Huel's attitude, to which Huel responds, so far, spreading the same misery that I'm suffering is about the greatest joys of working with you. Ezrin just gets another chuckle out of it, and they both move back into the bar, now with Mig under their control. There they see the bartender, and they ask him, where is Fret? Where is the man who owns this bar? The bartender says, please, get his ass out of my bar. I will let you do whatever you want. Just please get this owner out of here. I previously owned this place, and we never did any imports, and we were flowing in money. Ever since we're importing drinks and food, now we've been losing money. We haven't seen any profits. He's in the back. He pulls out a little key and hands it to Ezrin. Do whatever it is you gotta do. Huel just snickers. Yeah, we're gonna brand another one, aren't we? Mig, Ezrin, and Huel barge into the owner's area. There they see him, a scrawny, wimpy little man, missing an eye. Charging at him, taking him down, throwing him into Mig holding him in place. They begin to interrogate him. Where's the money? And it turns out he spent it all to buy the place. Okay. Where's the tumors that he snatched? He says he doesn't have it. To which Huel is investigating the office room and then uses his telekinetic magic to rip a goddamn chest out of the wall, and there before them is 2 tumors, easily worth 1,200 demicostal coins each. While looking inside, they also find the deed to the place, the very ownership of the entire bar. Upon which, Ezrin gets a good idea. Hey, let's call the owner in, which is Fret, and let's call the bartender in to witness as Fret hands over the deed to the place. But first, let's brand Fret. Ezrin tries to do it, but it turns out that Ezrin has been kind of winging it this entire time. He's unable to really do a good brand, and he just ends up scorching Fret's eye. Upon which Huel realizes what's going on magically and says, "Are you shitting me? You don't even know what the fuck you're doing, and yet you somehow did this to us? This has got to be a joke." Ezrin just kind of sighs. Listen, okay? This was kind of good for demons. I didn't know it'd work so well on hylden, okay? That's a total bullshit excuse too, but Ezrin just settled for it at the time. Finally, they did manage to brand Fret, upon which they call in the bartender, and the bartender sees that they're having Fret sign away the deed of the very bar to this outsider, Ezrin. The bartender screams, "No! I won't let this place go to ruin. My whole life will be in ruins." Huel just says, at least I'm not the only one's life who's gotten ruined. So, Ezrin now has the deed, and he shows it to the bartender. "I am trying to make things better. I will try to lead your bar into prosperity. We're not doing any more imports like you asked." Noticing that they now don't have a waitress because, well, she fled, thinking that she would be caught up in the owner's schemes, the bartender tells Ezrin, "Listen, we need 1,000 gold surplus to revive this business, but we also need a waitress or a waiter, so try to find one." As Ezrin leaves to go score in his bounty, this is where they find something weird's going on. Listening to the crowd of people, they see children and the disabled flocking towards this guy. He's a real charmer. And here he is, just charming away, telling stories to people of his travels, talking of great glories that have come and passed. And it's here that Ezrin approaches this man. "So, we are looking for a waiter, someone who's good with people. And you, my sir, fit this bill description perfectly." Upon approaching him with this offer, the man says, "Well, I expect 10 coins a day, plus any tips." And upon which, you notice that Fret kind of looks odd at this. And Fret chimes in, "Tipping is alien here in Divin. We don't do that." Ezrin and Fret look at each other, and then Ezrin looks back at this newcomer, this weird, charming man. Okay, so Fret, how much did you usually pay the waitress? "Oh, we usually paid her 20 coins per day." The stranger's eyes nearly pop out of his head. 20 a day? I could buy food every day then. Wow, I'll take that deal. As he calms down with excitement, he finally answers Ezrin's questions. "I come from Origast. Traveled to Hagyavast and Jaltuk. Didn't like that hellhole that it was Figured I high time and leave, and I traveled somewhere more prosperous. Doing odd jobs here and there, telling stories to tribal savages to earn safe passage through their sacred lands of bone and soot. He's quite the storyteller. They call me Drentir, carrier of truths, dispeller of lies. Seeing that this man would clearly be a well addition to his new establishment, Ezrin hires the man right on the spot. Yeah, go to this tavern. You can begin your work immediately. Having now settled the waitress problem, Drentir disembarks for the bar. Ezrin now settling for his bounty, he heads back to the doctor's office. As they approach, the doctor nods. How did you wake up from the surgery so early? To which Fret starts shaking. Nothing, you just suck at surgeoning, that's all. Dr. Alf just nods. I see. Well, no problem. I got a special brew that I wanted to test anyways. Maybe it'll make you spill the truth. Fret looks at Ezrin with begging eyes. Please do not do this to me. I'm a victim of avarician tumors. Look at me, I'm a cripple. I can't spend the last of my days in torture. You wouldn't do that, would you? I could help with the store. Ezrin just shakes his head and says, This man has set a bounty for you. I have no claim on your life. I have delivered on that contract as promised for payment. You had the opportunity to pay your debt after converting those tumors, but instead, you bought a tavern. Your life is his. The doctor, of course, sees this and slides over an elixir of red with 400 demicostal coins. Going to the bank, they notice that this time the bank does not have a line. This is important because one night Ezrin saw that the line at the bank was so long that it actually took 12 hours for the line to subside, and by then the bank was closed. So, seeing that there was almost no line in the midday, Ezrin quickly stepped in and tried to cash in these avarician tumors. To which the bank teller said, Okay, I need you to sign here, 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 here. This says that you are a citizen of Divin. This here says that if you do not get the amount of gold that you're supposed to get, then you will be forced out of the bank and you will just have to accept whatever payment we give you at the time and just return with the receipt to collect the rest of the payment. And then here you will sign that you are not doing anything illegal, such as breaking the crimes of the citizenry of Divin. And as the teller starts to say more and more, the teller stops and says, You're not a citizen, are you? Ezrin goes, No, absolutely not. Upon which the teller says, Okay, what you need to do is you need to go to the guardhouse down there next to the main castle where the ruler of Divin is. And there you'll speak to the guards about citizenship. They'll make you pay for it. And then they'll go over a long list of privileges you'll be allowed now as a citizen of Divin. Now please, step aside, sir. You're forming a queue. Ezrin steps out and heads back to the bar, showing all the money he's made. And at the bartender says, Listen, if you're going to become a citizen, they're going to ask you, do you own anything? Say no. Just say that I own this bar, if they ever ask. The reason is that if they find out you own something before you became a citizen, they'll take it from you. The city will own it. They'll possess it from you. Don't do that. Okay. So, what do I do then? Go become a citizen, and then afterwards we'll say that we signed the deal over of this very facility to you afterwards. And then I would probably try to silence Fret the best you can. I know you just sold Fret to the doctor, but he's a loose cannon. He could say something. So Ezrin decides, okay, it's a little late out, but I'll see if the guards are available. Ezrin heading out of the city towards the inner part of it where the castle is. He sees the guards. The guards are covered in gold-plated glyph armor. They are brutish to the extreme. And he tells them, I'm here to apply for citizenship. The guard looks him up and down. Come with me. And the single guard turns around and walks. Ezrin follows him nicely and tightly. And there they approach this building, this lone tower. And inside they find the very captain of these guards, the very leader of them all. He sits down and looks at his papers from what he's gathered from all of his informants in the city. And he starts asking questions. So, do you have a criminal record? No. So, what brings you to the city? Money, gold, trade. Okay. Do you own anything? No. Just the stuff on my back. Okay. What about the Brawling Hunger? I hear that bar you've been visiting lately, and it seems like you've been more or less frolicking there. Oh, I just rent a room or two. Really? I heard the last owner, Fret, was just enslaved. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? He had a bounty on his head, and I was collecting it. As I said, I'm here for business. Ezrin was sweating. Ezrin's palms were getting very wet and damp. He was nervous, but he held it together. He passed an endurance check to maintain his figure, to not let the guard get suspicious. Finally, the guard said, okay, it's a one-time fee, and then sign here. Ta-da! Ezrin has achieved citizenship of Divin. As he leaves, he breathes a sigh of fresh air. And Huel says, I wish they caught your ass. It would have been so funny to see you squirm and lose all the shit that you've done so far. Ezrin just smiles. Oh, Huel, you're always so positive. Heading back to the bar, the bartender says, okay, it's late out. The guards probably aren't going to do anything, but at least you did that. Now, I was looking at the numbers, and Ezrin, we're going to be making about 300 coins per day. That's 300 coins for you after all the expenses that I have to do. Ezrin looks at this with glee. 300 coins a day? That's great. That means he can do a lot of things. So, they rest for the night. In the morning, he heads out to Dr. Alf's again, this time to look for Fret and see if he could silence him. Heading on in, Dr. Alf sees him again and says, to what do I owe the pleasure? Upon which, they explain their situation. They need Fret to not be able to talk. They need Fret to be silenced. The doctor says, I could do that. 500 coins. Having a huge amount of income, easily Ezrin pays the bill. 500 coins is not a problem. Upon which they strap down Fret, and Fret is nervous and says, what's going on? Upon which the doctor, Dr. Alf, says, we're doing surgery, my friend. Now, hold still. And Fret starts to panic. What about anesthesia? No. Come on, Fret. You said I was bad at this after all. I don't want to risk you waking up during the procedure. So, the doctor jams a device into Fret's mouth as he's panicking, breaking a few of his teeth and splitting his lip. Cranking the device, he divides his mouth completely open wide. Pulling out a super hot iron. The iron is shaped like a trowel. The man, the doctor, scoops underneath the tongue of Fret and evens out the trowel and pulling it out like a slice of pie. The entire tongue of Fret is now removed. Inside Fret's mouth, where his tongue used to be, is just charred steak. Just charred remains, no bleeding. It's a clean cut. Fret has passed out from the pain. Sliding the tongue into Ezrin's pocket, Ezrin just pulls out the tongue and then slaps Huel's mouth with it and says, hey, look at this. And he's trying to annoy Huel. Huel just goes, oh, I wish they catch your ass. I would love to see you in prison. Dr. Alf says, all right. Well, thank you for the fine establishment, gentlemen. And upon which the door bangs. Bang, bang, bang. 3 guards in full gold glyph armor come barging in. Citizen, leave. We have questions for the doctor. Ezrin steps out, but he stays next to the window so he can hear what's going on. And here he hears it all. We've been hearing reports that this slave of yours has answers that we need answering. The doctor looks and says, well, as a citizen, I have rights, and he's my property, and you can only take my slave if it's for the betterment of society. Seeing as how you cannot achieve either of these things, you're not taking my slave. So the guards simply approach the slave, who's barely conscious, barely awake, and they start asking him questions. Did you sign over the deed of the brawling hunger? He doesn't speak. He tries to mouth words, but he can't. The guards pick him up by the throat. Did you give away the deed of this place to a non-citizen? Fret can't answer. Dr. Alf snaps. Put him down and get out of my establishment now, you brutes. Upon which the guards slam down Fret, killing him. Great, now you owe me money for my slave. The guards throw a pouch of 300 gold coins at the doctor, and they leave. The doctor is a little upset, but at least he is happy that he's getting paid really well today. Heading out, Ezrin uses all the money that he has to start procuring some things. He starts buying equipment, some gear, some steel armor, and weapons for himself and his party. And it's here that he asks the blacksmith about things like, does he need anything handled? Does he need anything that a mage can handle for him? And the blacksmith says, oh no. The guild, they have their hands in all businesses, and they do not like it when a business prospers without their knowing. But, from what I hear, are you the owner of this Brawling Hunger bar, and yet you don't pay dividends to the guild? This, of course, surprises them. And Ezrin says, yeah, do I have to make friends with the guild? The blacksmith says, well, they charge a pretty penny, but at least they promise a certain amount of gold will go your way, and they do live up to it. They allow you to have a certain amount of patrons. Ezrin says, we should visit the other bar and see how they are in contrast to us, because there's only 2 bars in the whole city. So they head to the Golden Feast, and there they see true extravagance. This is clearly for higher-end clients. Here they see silver, velvet, gold, marble, everything. Tables are well smoothed. There's great amounts of guards everywhere, each in their own armor that's covered in glyphs. This is a very high-end place. And upon which, one of the guards approaches Ezrin. Boss wants to see you. Ezrin heads up, and as he sees, inside a room, it's just him, 2 guards, and some man sitting on a table. The man simply drinks his drink, and Ezrin bows and respectfully approaches him. Hey, tavern master. I was hoping to see how your business was run, and honestly, this looks great. The man says, is it true that you own the Brawling Hunger? And that you snatched it from that fool Fret, and now you're actually making a profit out of this place? Upon which Ezrin says, yeah, I'm a new owner in this town, and I was looking to see how things work. And I heard that the guild here, it likes to have good relations with owners, so that was my plan. The man puts down his drink and says, listen, the plan was that Fret would run the business to the ground, and then I'd buy from him very cheaply. And then that way, the guild that I work with, Prest, would now own both bars in the entire city, and we would own more land of the city, causing us to put more pressure against the king and the guards of this land. You just kind of destroyed that plan. So, I'm going to offer you a one-time deal. I will pay you 5,000, and you will be accepted into the guild, and the guild will take care of you. We will give you 5,000 gold per day. You'll be given food, water, shelter, no issues. You'll never have to worry. But your branding, you cannot brand anybody unless I choose, and only me. Upon which Ezrin looked and said, As he tries to haggle for a better deal about the brands, the man shakes his head and says, if you won't accept this deal before you, then we have nothing to discuss. And then he warns Ezrin, if you leave, I'll make sure you have no customers tomorrow. Your business will run dry in a matter of days. Ezrin, not really understanding what he just kind of dealt with, says, well, I'll have a day to think about it over then, friend, but I would very much like to work with you. But I need room to breathe. If you feel my requests can benefit you, and they will, feel free to send someone for me. This is an opportunity for both of us. You want me on your case, and your enemies know you. They know far less of me. Heading back to the bar, Ezrin tells the story to the bartender, and the bartender freaks out. You did what? You went against the guild? I don't know if you know this, but majority of our patrons are miners, and the miners do what their bosses say. If they want to keep working, they have to appease the guild, and if the guild says, hey, you're not allowed to eat here, they will not eat here. Ezrin starts to begin to realize what he just entered into. Okay, so what can we do? And upon which the bartender sighs and says, the only thing you can do is to somehow try to get a bunch of other store businesses to somehow agree to form a union, in which case we'll become a third faction in the city. And then this way we can stand up to the Guild of Prest. But it's going to involve a lot of communication, a lot of convincing. Many people like the way things are right now. So I don't think we're going to be able to do this. I would honestly go back and take the deal, and he may undercut you even further. Thinking, Ezrin finally wondered, who are the biggest businesses in the city? Where are some businesses that have more power than just a bar? And upon which they realized the farms. The farms outside the city who collect tumbleweeds. They're the ones who feed the city, but no one really helps them out. So any outsider who would help the farms would easily get their support. And with the support of the farms, they could easily starve the city and starve the guild out and force either a better deal or create this new union that they've been thinking of. So they head out. Upon the next day, they see the exact effects of the guild. The guild has put extreme pressure on the business. The business is hemorrhaging money. There is not a single bar patron. And it's here that many of the miners are gruntled and upset because this is their main place of nourishment, their main place of food, and they're refusing to step into the bar. A few days go by like this, and Ezrin is barely managing to keep his business afloat. And he tells the guards of the city, hey, there's a bit of a power struggle between me and the Prest, and I don't have the money right now to go out and do what I need to do. Before he knows it, a massive group of gold glyphed guards approach the tavern. This is historical. Everyone watches in shock. It's been 2 days, and all of a sudden, this outsider has gained the support of the very city itself. And these gold glyph guards just begin gurgling, drinking, eating as much food as they can. The store earns a really sizable profit, but the problem is that now they're kind of running out of food. And since many of the guild merchants are working with Prest, they're not offering good deals to the bar. So now the pressure is even higher. They really do have this issue of greed versus power. Ezrin needs to keep his business floating. But now with no food, no water, no drinks, and no money coming in, he needs to get these merchants to band together under his banner. So he yells out to the markets, don't be afraid, don't worry. The Guild of Prest only has so much power that if all of us band together, we can easily overthrow them. The miners look angry, and the guild men are sweating profusely because they've never seen such an act before. And their own workers are starting to push back against them. It's been so many days that they haven't gone back to their favorite bar, they're starting to get very angry. So, simply put, Ezrin just tells the miners as it is. You're being punished for one man's greed, and the guild is being deceived by the same guy. You'll know his name. And all I demand is that you honor Prest and do not be deceived. You'll be led to ruin by this deed that they are doing. So, heading out, they head out to these farms finally, now with a bit of money and a bit of desperation. Approaching one of the farms It's a mage farm. It's a farm where the mages use their telekinesis to wrap and grab the tumbleweeds as they fall from the mountain and throw them into baskets. As Ezrin and his company walk inside, all of a sudden this mage comes down and says, let's see how powerful you really are. Let's see how you treat your slaves. And with a small waft of his hand, the runes disappear off of Huel's head. And Huel doesn't act. He just simply shrugs and goes, my master's all right. So, impressed by this, the man waves his hand back and the rune resumes its place. Impressed. The man deems that Ezrin is actually a character of value, someone who's upstanding. Hearing out Ezrin's plea in the situation he's in, the man nods and goes, okay. I need you to do something for me, though. There is a tribe nearby. They're called the Twirlshanks. They're extremely deadly. They recently went raiding and took a lot of our stuff, including some of our people. I need you to go into their tribe and try to get back as much of the grain as possible. Heading out into the desert to fight the Twirlshanks with not much to their group, Ezrin and Huel head out and they fight the Twirlshanks. The fight did not go in any way the way that they expected. The Twirlshanks are a unique group of mad ones who bend their bone blades into unique shapes, into unique screws, into unique flat heads, all sorts of shapes. But in doing so, they actually are more deadly. So, approaching the Twirlshanks, they spare nobody. They kill Ezrin easily. Ezrin was just not powerful enough. He wasn't leveled at any bit because he couldn't do anything. He was so busy running a business that he couldn't run his own character. He couldn't level up his own character. Engaging the Twirlshanks the best he could, he did kill a few of them, killed half of them. But the Twirlshanks, in their bloodlust, with one vicious swipe, they impaled Huel and killed him. And then, in a rather brutal, grotesque fashion, they rendered Ezrin to shreds. In the end, all was failed. Ezrin's end was swift. His ending was swifter. But in the end, we have a story of a character who somehow took over a business in a very prosperous city, and then it was immediately met with political conflict. Because now he owned power that he could not maintain. He owned something that he himself was too weak to maintain, which I find very fascinating. Now, as far as the rest of the players, what happened to the rest of the characters in this world? Well, due to the heavy conflict that happened inside the guild versus the city, Divin itself became a little bit harder to live in. The prices increased by 10 coins over for every food produce. The citizens were very upset by this. And the Guild of Press started to have a bit of infighting among their own merchants. The very guy who started this whole fight at the Golden Feast was heavily ridiculed and chastised for what danger he put the guild through. But the very people of the bar, the Brawling Hunger, you may say, well, what happened to Drentir? Drentir moved on. He was a wanderer at heart. This was nothing new for him. The owner of the bar, he was disgusted with the practices of the guild, so he simply packed up his stuff and moved on, sadly, tears in his eyes looking back at what he had built now be ruined. So he made it to the heart of hylden civilization in the city of Nuring and became a bar there. Besides that, the Twirlshanks, they still raid, they still do their business. Their tribe is much bigger than many would anticipate. And they pretty much wrapped the intestines of Ezrin and Huel around a giant tree, a giant mushroom tree, as part of their ritual holiday. This has been the Demon Realm. This has been the story of Ezrin. I have omitted a lot of the fluff inside the story. This was a very, very, very long adventure. And to date, this has been one of the longest adventures I've done with just a single player. If you guys enjoyed, please subscribe. I'm rather sick when I'm recording this, so that's why I have to keep pausing and coughing and all this other fun jazz and talking so slowly. So, see you guys next time.